That's a great question. I like what I saw growing up because I think it gave me my drive. My title of CEO is strategic. There are men in the commercial space who want nothing to do with me. They're, well, who's the real owner of the company? I'm so passionate about talking about how to do things in a small business. What are the stressful components that we can eliminate? I think that if you want to get into commercial, you have to.
Welcome to the Built by Me podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Christine Hodge from Clearview Washing LLC. Christine was a former paralegal turned CEO and has helped the company increase their revenue by over 200% and doubled their staff. We talked about a lot of great things in this episode, including how to be a woman in a male-dominated industry, how they maintain that growth and continue to grow year over year, and how to maintain a work-life balance working in a family business. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, how's your day been? What have you been doing? How are you feeling?
My day is great. We just got a puppy, so it's like having another child at home. And,
Yes.
re-potty training again and all of that good stuff. So I spent the morning with the puppy and here I am. Yeah.
Have you had a puppy before? Is this like your first puppy or?
I had one in my early 20s.
Okay.
And he was so cute. He was like perfect to me. I think he was like human. So like with this one, she's adorable, but I'm like, why can't I get the potty training right? Why can't I, it's taking a little longer, but she's adorable. She's napping right here. So I'm not going to wake her because I don't want her to disrupt the podcast.
We'll try to keep it down then.
No, if you see me like jump out of my seat, it's because she like got to the toilet paper or something.
That's okay. This is not live. So if something happens, you're totally okay.
Okay.
The puppy stage is like, they're so cute at that stage, but it's so much more work. Like my dog is now 2, which means she's like still in her puppy phase, but not really. And I'm just like, this is a complete night and day of what she was like when she was a puppy. She's so well behaved. She's literally just sleeping and like just chilling. And I'm just like, wow, remember when you were crazy running around, breaking everything, chewing walls?
Chewing walls.
Yes. I lost my security deposit because of her.
You made it through. You made it.
Yes. We made it on the other side. Okay, perfect. Well, can you tell us more about yourself? What does a typical day look like for you, even with this new puppy?
Absolutely. So I call myself a work-at-home mom because I feel like I'm a stay-at-home mom. My office is at home. I'm very present in my children's lives and I like to be involved in everything. I'm their class moms and I like to be, very present with them, which is why I'm so appreciative of being an entrepreneur and working with my husband because I would not have that flexibility if I didn't have this job. So I'm the CEO at Clearview Washing. It's an exterior cleaning company based in New Jersey. And my husband and his father started the company actually exactly 20 years ago. It'll be 20 years on March 19th. So I joined when we had our daughter, Gabriella, about 6 years ago. My background is in the corporate world and I wanted to leave to be a stay-at-home mom. And then just organically became very involved in the business. And here I am today. So a typical day for me is, momming in the morning, jumping on the computer and acting as CEO and running things and creating processes and everything for our company. And then logging off at 2:30 to go back to momming.
That's amazing.
Nice.
That's so cool. So you talk about you were a paralegal before this then, right?
Yep.
So how was that transition? Like, how do you go from, because I think of people that are listening to this are gonna be like, how do you go from being a paralegal to running, a power washing company essentially? And you took over as CEO in 2017, right? And the company started in, I believe it was 2004, you said?
Yep.
So what was the, how was that transition from paralegal to CEO?
It was easy for me because my parents were entrepreneurs. My aunts and uncles were entrepreneurs. It's my family. We're all entrepreneurs. And a little bit of background is my whole family's from Lebanon. So,
okay, cool. I'm Lebanese.
Oh, wow. We might be cousins.
That's right.
So, when they come over from the Middle East and
Yeah.
they have to start over, and,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
highly educated in the Middle East, and then they come here and the education doesn't really matter. And
Mm-hmm.
they had to start from scratch. And, my childhood was in warehouses and dry cleaners and restaurants. And I saw the grind, and I was a part of the grind with my cousins. And I think that's why I was so drawn to my husband, because
Mm.
you know uh it's I just understand that life. So there was no conversation about it, but like now that I'm 6 years in to the company, like we talk about it all the time. I'm like, I think that's why we were meant to be together, because I get
Mm.
it. I love being at our shop at the warehouse. I love opening the garage door. I love dealing with the crews. Like, I'm comfortable there. It feels like home to
Yeah.
me. The corporate world didn't. I got in trouble a lot as a paralegal, because I was a paralegal, but I was always trying to fix what was broken. Like,
Mm.
I would go to our VP and say, we need a system for this. We have lawyers all over the world essentially working on the same product. I think that we should streamline that. I think that we should create a
Mm-hmm.
database. I think we should. And I did have one attorney yell at me in the hallway and just say, "Do you want to be a paralegal, or do you want to go into IT?" So
Mm.
I have always wanted to express like my innovative abilities, and I wasn't able to
Yeah.
do that in the corporate world. So that's come very
Mm.
naturally to me here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, why would you say you started as a paralegal as opposed to just like diving into the world of entrepreneurship, right? Like growing up around entrepreneurs, and
Mm-hmm.
was it the stability aspect? Like I don't know if you can comment on that.
That's a great question. And I think it's because when your family comes from somewhere else, the goal is to be safe and to be
Mm.
secure and to take
Mm-hmm.
the path that others have taken. And
Mm-hmm.
that's no fault of my family or my parents or anyone, but it's like you have to get a safe job and you have to get a steady paycheck. And I don't want you to live the stressful life that we're living,
Right.
which every parent would want for their kids. They want them to be just safe, and entrepreneurship is not safe by any means.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it but that wasn't me. I don't consider myself a risk taker. Like, I don't go skydiving and stuff. Like, I'm not that type of risk taker, but I thrive off of, I guess, having control of my destiny. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
have that at the corporate world. I didn't control my paycheck.
There's a
I
lot of
didn't.
red tape.
Yeah, yeah. You don't
Yeah.
have control over anything. It's at someone else's discretion. And here, I can make my own choices. I can treat my employees how I want to treat them. I can determine their pay. I can determine their futures. I can, help them out when I want to. I've bought
Mm-hmm.
groceries for some of our employees when I knew someone needed something. Like, I
It's
can
amazing.
incorporate the core lessons that I learned in the corporate world while really strongly maintaining the human element of working with people. And that's important to me.
Yeah. I think that there's always some kind of trade-off when it comes to being an entrepreneur versus working in an established business. And of course, while you get that stability working under someone else's processes, someone else's like mindset, you don't get that freedom to do. And if you have that kind of attitude, if you have that kind of passion, because not everyone does have it, and that's okay. But if you do have that drive and that passion, you're going to feel stuck working, or especially being a cog in a machine, when you feel like you're meant for more. Especially, I think, being a paralegal versus being like a partner at a firm, right? You have a lot of different responsibilities. They're expected, as a paralegal, you're expected to just kind of stay the course and
Do
just
it your
make
fault.
their lives easier. Exactly. You're not really welcome with like innovative ideas, and creative ideas are not really welcome at that stage. I'm not sure at any stage, but because I'm not a lawyer, but at that stage. So that is really interesting how you felt like, you had all these creative ideas and ways that you can make life better. Was it something that maybe you're bringing home, and if like your husband was talking about a problem, you're like, oh, what if you tried this? Like, and it was just kind of like a natural, like you were already problem solving for the company. So why not problem solve for the company?
Yeah, it was. It did happen like that. There was one of the first times that I helped out. He was like almost in tears because they were cleaning like the pool house of a brand new, like multi-million-dollar home. And in the pool house was like $30,000 of brand new stainless steel, like refrigerator, stove, like it was an outdoor kitchen in the pool house.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still in the field at that time, and they had cleaned the floors of this pool house. And
Oh,
the
no.
fumes of something was changing the color of this $30,000 of stainless steel.
Oh,
And
no.
it was very early on in our relationship. And he was like, I don't know what to do. Like it was a different stage in the game with insurances and stuff like that. And
Right.
we were just Googling like all night, like what can we put on this? What can we, and that's where we discovered like Barkeeper's Friend and like some other stuff. And like, and then, so I was helping him with that. But, something that you said, I think is really important when you're talking about entrepreneurship, and it is problem solving. And I got involved through helping him with problem solving. And that's what we continue to do. Like, that's what entrepreneurship is. Something like a wrench is going to be thrown into your day, like every day. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, how can I solve that problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are you I guess going back to your journey, then you were paralegal and then you decided to kind of go become a stay-at-home mom. You kind of quit the legal world.
Yeah.
And then how big of a gap was it between, you not being a paralegal anymore to jumping into Clearview?
It was 6 months.
6 months.
It
Okay,
was,
cool.
yep, it was exactly 6 months. So I left. My commute was really far, and I wasn't. Our daughter was 4 months old when my maternity leave ended. So I went back to work for 3 days, and then I came home and I told Freddie, my husband, I really want to quit. Like I'm a mom now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't come home at 7 o'clock and see her and put her to sleep. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And he said, then quit. And I was like, what are we gonna I didn't even know what his income was at that time. Like it was so new. The marriage was new. The company was so much smaller. It was in October, and he's closed in the winter. So I'm like, we're not even gonna have any money in the winter.
Mm,
So but I did. I went back to work the following day on the fourth day, and I said, I can't do this. Like I have to leave. And I had been there for so long, so my whole adult life essentially. So they were really good to me upon leaving, and they, offered me a really good severance package actually, because I said I don't
okay,
know
that's
what
good.
his income is like in the winter, and but I can't. Momming is more important to me than any career.
Mm.
And and then after 6 months, I was back to work.
Yeah.
It was just with Clearview instead.
Yeah. Did you feel like I feel like this is a question that a lot of women face when they're in the working world. Like, is momming more important than your career, or is this something that, like, because you feel like you're missing out on both ends? If you're at home with your children, then you're missing out on what you could be doing in the corporate world. If you're in the corporate world, then you're missing out on what you could be doing at home. Do you think
Yeah.
this was like a way that you can kind of get the best of both worlds a little bit? Because you, like you mentioned at the beginning, you're like a work from home mom, which is a really cool term because you do get to still be there for your kids, but you still get to, have a passion and build something.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's at every woman's discretion. Like, it's your preference, but my preference was like if I think of my childhood and my parents owning the dry cleaners, which is majority of where I spent my childhood, like
Mm,
I loved it. So I didn't feel like my parents worked all the time, but I think it was because they were working and me and my sister were with them.
right.
So it didn't feel like they were working all the time, but they were working all the time. Like it was like a
Mm,
4 a.m. to a midnight type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I didn't feel it. So I think I'm trying to recreate that. Like I want to feel success and feel like I built something successful and feel like I'm a part of something and work like that. It's driving me, but I take the kids with me to work functions. I take them to the Christmas party. I pulled them out of school to come to the Clearview Christmas party. Like it's important for them to see what hard work looks like. And whether
Mm-hmm.
they choose to go into entrepreneurship or whether they choose to go into the corporate world, it's their choice. But I like what I saw growing up because I think it gave me my drive.
mm-hmm.
So if I can provide that for my kids too, and then let them make their own choice when they grow up, then, it is what it is.
I love that, actually, because that's one of the things, like, historically, like, entrepreneurship is seen as, like, this like, not this vision, but it's almost like this perception of entrepreneurship, especially for, like, previous generations, where it's like, I want to shield my kids or hide them from entrepreneurship. But I think you're right. I think showing them, like, that this is a potential opportunity, this is what hard work looks like, is a very important thing, as opposed to just, like, pushing them in a different direction. I wanted to ask, going back towards your journey. So 6 months, staying at home mom to CEO, right? And you're talking about Clearview, a company that's been around for a while. Your husband, I believe it's your father-in-law, kind of started the business.
Yeah.
How do you kind of go from, you know what I mean, just all the way up to the top, if that makes sense? Like, it's like
Yeah.
that part. I think people would like to know how that happened, right?
So it's that whole ability to control your destiny, right? An ability to control everything when you're an entrepreneur. So my title of CEO is strategic. So it doesn't matter what I do, right? I created the role. I help out in the office. I manage the office. I manage sales. I do all of our processes and things like that, operations. But why CEO? We felt that there are people in our industry who want to deal with a man, and there are people in our industry who want to deal with a woman. And there are female property managers, and they might not want to deal with my husband or my father-in-law. And there are, wealthy, housewives. We cater to a lot of high-end luxury homes in New Jersey, and they don't want to talk to our field crew, and they don't want to talk to anybody. And so, if we see that coming, I show up and I'm like, hi, I'm the CEO, this is a $6,000 residential job. I'm going to make sure she likes us. And if that's putting my face in front as the CEO, that's what it's going to be. So our titles are very strategic. There are men in the commercial space who want nothing to do with me. They're, well, who's the real owner of the company? And I'm like, I'll guide you to Fred. You know what I mean? So you have to, is it right? No. Am I offended? No, it is what it is. Humans are like that. And so what's cool about it is my father-in-law is older and well seasoned, and he's been in the industry for 20 years. And there are older men who want to deal with him. And then there are younger guys who want to go golfing. And that's for my husband. My husband closes those deals. And then I can deal with the women, and we all switch around. But the point is, CEO to me was very strategic. And we think that it's been a benefit to put a female in a power in position of power for a male dominated industry.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool that you guys have a diverse, like, it's like, you have a person for every kind of demographic that you guys are targeting. And that's just so interesting because, of course, like, the world that we live in, unfortunately, the people are going to have biases, and they're going to have their preferences, and unfortunately make it very known. So it's really cool that if you know that already, you can already put your best foot forward, and you're not really missing out on opportunities because there is no woman or there's no man. It's kind of like, you guys, oh, which one do you want? Who do you want to deal with today?
You kind of just embrace it. But also, like, so many women work with their husbands or work at their husband's company. And by default, they're office manager. And I'm like, you're more than an office manager. Like, it's your husband. You can make your title whatever you want it to. You can be president. That looks great on a commercial bid, that the president of our company is a female. Like, titles don't matter to everybody, but in a small business it might. So you don't always have to be office manager. You're doing so much more than that.
Such a great point. Yeah. So how has that perception been for you being in such a position of power in a male dominated industry, but not only that, in this industry with your husband and your father-in-law? Like, has there been any pushback from maybe the team or other people on the outside?
That's a good question. I haven't felt any pushback internally, but we are a very close knit team. Even with the guys, like, I love them. So I haven't felt any internal pushback. On the outside, let me think about it. I have not felt any pushback with clients. I think clients like seeing my name in a position of power. Like, I just think it looks good. I truly do. The only time I've felt pushback, so I've never verbally received any pushback, is I can tell when certain like male podcasters like only want to interview my husband and they don't want to interview me. And then like my husband is very supportive of me. So like he'll, even if he's done an interview or done a YouTube video, he'll always say, you should do my wife next. Like she's, she can give you a different
I love
aspect
that.
of the business. Always he does that. And he'll send messages and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then they never reach out. And I'm like, it's because they only interview males. And I'm not offended. It's their loss. Like, I know that, I have a lot to offer.
It is their loss. Yes.
So Christine, going back to your story. So 6 months, you're now in CEO position. What was that transition like? Like, how did it start? Like, were you kind of like did you hit the ground? Like, do you know what I mean? Like running, or were you kind of like spending time in the field? Maybe talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was a very slow progression. I was still very stay-at-home mom, but always available by phone to help people, help our office team, help with processes. And then when our daughter was 2, I was pregnant with our son. And I remember being pregnant and starting to go into the shop more. So like I was transitioning from like stay at home mom to like, let me spend some time at the shop. And I did it 2 days a week. And my mother-in-law would babysit our daughters, that I could do that. And so it felt like a very slow transition, like 2 to 3 years before I was like there. But I never worked out in the field, but my spending time at the shop helped me become really close to our team, which was nice. And people have asked, like, well, then how do I know how to power wash, or how do I know how to wash a window, or how do I? And I always say, I just think it's because I'm married to Freddie. Like, if it's just conversation. So if any client calls and I take the call, I can walk them through every step of the way and how we do things. But I just think it's by default because I'm married to Freddie.
Yeah, you've seen a different side of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to go to something that you said right before this about, podcasts and your husband going on some podcasts. You're actually on. I actually didn't even know who your husband was. I just know you. So I'm just kind of like, I had to look him up and research when we were going to have you on the podcast. So I know that you've done quite a fair number of other speaking opportunities. You've been on other podcasts. You've been, even a speaker at Jobber Summit. So I guess, how did that happen? How did you get into those speaking roles? And is that a passion for you?
Huge passion. And if you would have said like 10, 20, or 30 years ago, because I was terrified to speak in front of people, that I would want to speak, I would say you were nuts, because I was very shy and insecure. But I guess things all fall into place for a reason. Like, everything is fate. And I know that I'm here at Clearview Washing for a reason. Like, I have not known what I was passionate about. I wasn't passionate about being a paralegal. It was a really good job. And so I didn't know what I was passionate about, but I'm so passionate about talking about how to do things in a small business. I don't know why, but I really like to sit with people and dissect, how do you do things and how can we make that better, or how can we make it more efficient? And I think that's why I feel comfortable on podcasts or on stage talking about it, is because in my whole life, this is like the first time I'm so confident that I know I got this. Like, I know that I'm doing things the right way. So if I can help another entrepreneur accelerate that, or do this faster, so they don't have to take 20 years to figure it out, why not share it? And then to take that a step further, it differentiates me from my husband, because yes, we're both a part of Clearview Washing, but it makes me feel like I have my own thing too. So I feel very proud of myself, and it's taken me a long time to get to that point. And that's why I like speaking.
Yeah.
I know it started with an application. for the huge convention, because Freddie always asks, like, he doesn't care how many times he gets a no, which is why he's so successful in business.
Mm-hmm.
He will message everyone on LinkedIn 10 times until he either gets a yes or a no. And so he's always saying this, people are looking for a podcaster here, or you should apply to speak here. So like he's always said, apply for this, apply for that. And I did. And my first like big speaking gig was at the huge convention. And I'm so happy he told me to do it because I love it.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about what you've done at Clearview, because we were reading online, and I think it was something north of like 300% increase in revenue or something amazing like that, which it is actually quite amazing. I'd like for you to kind of walk us through that. What sort of caused that growth? Was it marketing? Like what really happened there?
We think what happened was that when I came in, we realized that my strengths were Freddie's weaknesses and my weaknesses were his strengths. So I'm not a marketing person, nor am I a salesperson, which sounds crazy, but like I'm not a salesperson and I'm not a marketing person. He is. So for him to be able to take, like, I feel like I took a lot of weight off of his shoulders in processes and documenting things and rolling it out to everyone, even training, and allow him to focus on sales and marketing. I think that's what accelerated us. So we have in one of our presentations that we did at the huge, I think this past year, I have a chart on our PowerPoint, and you can see from when the company started, I don't know which way to go, but whatever. Like it was like this, like a very like subtle incline. And then when he and I joined forces, you see the line go like this.
The hockey stick.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's so, and it's in 2017. I'm sorry, 2018. So we joke around and I'm like, you just needed me to join the company. And then the company
did.
growth. But really, it's
Clearly,
because, I
evidence.
just think he's a marketing genius. And when you're, like if you're working, if you're working in your business, you can't work on your business. Like he did need to bring on the right people to take things off of his plate so he can focus on bringing in leads. And then with that, I could take off his plate dealing with the guys. Like I like documenting our process. I spent like all last week doing that. And then we did our employee kickoff on Monday.
That's your paralegal side, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what it is. Like I created all these documents of like step by step, like this is what you do first. This is what you do next. And that's our strength is in being the yin and the yang, I think.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of the other guests that we've had on the podcast have said as well. Like having the right partners, having the right team is what's going to help you grow. So if you're feeling like you're struggling with something, I really like what you said. It's hard to work in the business and also on the business. And so if you're feeling like you're kind of like boggled down by the day-to-day things or things that it might take you a lot longer to do because that's not your strong suit. Hiring someone who can take that off your plate so that you can focus on what you're actually good at, what you actually like to do, will actually propel your business further than if you just try to stick it through it and try to work through it, because sometimes this is not your strong suit, and that's okay to admit. Just be self-aware and get someone. And I love that you guys complement each other so well, because that's a sign of a really good partnership.
Yeah, it's important to just embrace we created an org chart, and someone once asked me, well, don't you not like that you're under Freddie? Like you report to him? And I was like, no, that's my job. Like in the company, he's my husband, right? We're equal in our marriage. We're equal in our relationship. But at work, like this is his company and I do report to him. I'm not going to make any major business decisions without consulting with him first. And like that's why I say like husbands and wives have to respect each other in the industry. Like wives should have a title, a very important title, because you are very important to your husband's business. And with that, you respect the work that your husband put in before you got there. So if you have this mutual respect, it's a beautiful thing. It's when they stop respecting each other and the work that they're doing and almost competing with each other. I'm doing more work. I'm doing more work. That's where it's not going to work out.
How do you separate that? Like when you get home at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like, I mean, you
I
stay
was
at
gonna,
home, right? You work from home, but when he comes
yeah.
home and you guys are talking to shop, like, how do you
Yep.
separate that at
We
home?
don't deal with work when work is done.
Oh.
We will not deal with work when work is done. I work at home. When I get out of the office, work is done.
Hmm.
When he comes home from work, work is done. During the day, my cell phone, we talk maybe 20 times a day. We talk all day long about work. Like, and we have calls. Me and him have scheduled calls with each other on the calendar so that we can do certain things, marketing ideas, whatever.
Hmm.
But we treat each other as colleagues at work. And when we come home, I don't care what any entrepreneur says. This is also the benefit of seeing my parents work together. Like, you
Yeah.
have to create boundaries for yourselves. You know what I mean? Like, you can work all the time, but like not actually be working all the time. When we're with the kids, we're not working. When we're eating dinner, we're not working. We're not checking emails in bed.
Easier said than done, right? Obviously. Like,
Yeah.
how do you, like, do you have any advice for, because I mean, we've spoken to, we had another entrepreneur on the show. His name is Alan, and he runs a
Hmm.
handyman service as well.
Hmm.
Um, and he's also become like a thought leader. He has courses online and so on and so forth. Check out that episode if you haven't seen it.
Hmm.
But he basically, his wife's involved in his business, the same thing, right? And so like that's the question that I always ask, is that when you see a family run business, especially between a husband and wife, how do you create that barrier, right? Because you know you could be talking about work, but then it's like, hey, are you picking up the kids today, or what's, you know what I mean? Like it blurs, though, those lines gonna get blurred every once in a while.
Yes. So that was a big thing when I joined the company is we had our family group chat. So it's me, my husband, my brother-in-law, and his parents, right?
Mm,
My brother, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law, who both work in the business. And at the time, my brother-in-law worked in the business too. So we are on the family group chat, sending pictures of each other's kids and stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh my
mm,
god!" And then like at 10 o'clock, you get a text message on that family group chat that says, "Oh, we got a call back from a customer. We killed his tree and he's pissed off." And that's at 10 p.m. And I would tell my husband, I refuse to get those. If I'm not on the clock right now, you can't put me on the clock on the family group chat. And that was
yeah.
like a big thing is there is no work on the family group chat. So easier said than done, yes, but someone
Mm,
has to implement it. And I was that person. My husband would tell you, like, I would literally not respond to anything work related. Oh, Christine, can you call this customer in the morning about so and so? And I would be like, email me. I will
yeah.
not do it. I won't do it. I will not do it unless you send me an
So
email.
setting the boundaries essentially, right? Like really
Yeah.
establishing those boundaries early on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to set
there's something.
boundaries. Otherwise, you are working all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that applies to a lot of different things, right? Like even in the corporate world. It's like if you respond to your your manager in the evening,
Mhm.
they're gonna have that expectation of you every time that, he's available in the evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think boundaries are very, very important, especially with family run businesses.
I think that's something that you do really well, Christine, is like you've mentioned before, setting up processes. And so I feel like you set up this process for how to have this work-life balance, and you guys are
Yeah.
working together. So like this is the process and we're all gonna follow it because it's gonna help us in the long run. I think that's also really important. You have to set up
Yeah.
things like Mo said at the beginning so that yeah, you continue doing it and then eventually it just becomes a habit.
It is like entrepreneurship is very stressful.
Hmm.
So you do have to find ways to alleviate some stresses. So, like, it's
Mm,
really stressful to send a bad text message about work, like, hey, the bank account is overdrawn, you
right.
know, at
Yeah.
9 p.m. Like, that's stressful. So, like, what are the stressful components that we can eliminate? And just leave to work so that you can create some sort of division. It took us like 2 years to get there, but now
Yeah.
everyone's great.
That's good. No, that's really good.
Yeah.
It's not healthy either, right? Because then it's like you're just entrenched in work every single, like, 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're mad. Like, you're just like,
Yes.
what do you mean? Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's sometimes there are things that can just be dealt with in the morning. So if it's going to be stressful, it's like, yeah, the client called, said that you killed their tree. That can also, the tree is still going to be dead in the morning.
Yeah,
Let's
Yeah.
deal with, so
yeah,
why stress me out at 10 p.m. tonight? So at least I can get good sleep and come with this with fresh eyes in the morning.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
So
it's,
So I want to ask you about, I mean, going back to you kind of talked a little bit about how, the organization is set up with different roles, right? And different people can cater to different target audiences. But what has that perception been like, right? I mean, it is a male dominated industry. And it's funny, like, Taina and I were talking the other day, and I was just like, every time, like, I work from home as well, right? Every time someone knocks on my door, whether it's a painter, power wash, or I'm gonna clean your windows, it's typically a male, right? Like, what is that? Why is
Mhm.
that the perception there? And are we still there? You know what I mean? Do you see that changing? Like, are there more females that are getting into the home service industry? I don't know if you can elaborate on that.
I think that there are a lot of females in the home service industry. And I say it because of the speaking engagements. A lot of females attend our classes,
Mm,
but I think that they're still so behind the scenes that no one knows how many females are in the male dominated space. And
Hmm.
I think if they became more confident in communicating their knowledge to customers, to anyone, you know what I mean? Like, no one has, they don't all have to do podcasts, or, you know what I mean? But
hmm hmm
I don't think that they have to stay behind the scenes if they don't want to. I think that um, a lot of women in the space really know their stuff and offer a nice, different perspective to a family business. Um, by default, we offer a different level of empathy and
hmm
different ways of managing employees and stuff. So if the men in the industry can embrace that and use it to their advantage, instead of keeping it behind the scenes, I think then it won't look as such a male dominated space. I know
Yeah.
it will be, you know what I mean? But it's not as male dominated as I thought.
Mm.
Interesting.
Do you think in some ways we're perpetuating the fact that it's a male dominated industry by, I guess, saying, expecting it to be?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, like in the field, it's mostly men. We had a rock star girl in the field for the last few years. She was awesome. I supported everything about her. So I just think by default, like more men do the actual labor in the field. So I think that's why it's more spoken about as a male dominated industry.
Mm.
Mm.
But there's a lot of women running things behind the scenes.
which
that
is which is really important. Clearly, I mean, you've grown the company, so there's proof to the pudding. I want to ask you about the commercial side of the business, because I know you guys have a commercial arm, Clearview. When did that start? How's that going? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Commercial is wonderful. So it was a goal over the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years to grow the commercial side of the company, like the commercial division, and then keep residential, but focus on high end luxury residential.
Hmm
Because residential provides cash flow, like you're getting paid every day. But commercial, because they're at one place all day and for multiple days, it has larger margins. And
Mm.
so even though it takes longer to get paid, when you get paid,
Yeah.
it's better margins. So our goal was to end up being like 30% residential and 70% commercial. Last
Okay.
year we came in at 60/40. So it was 60% commercial, 40% residential.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we do a higher volume of residential jobs, but a higher value of commercial jobs.
Right.
And I think if you can, there are very hefty insurance requirements in the commercial industry, but if you can get in, I would not say no. I would say yes and then figure it out.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to go from introducing commercial to now it being, 60%?
It was about, I would say, like 4 or 5 years. In the
Okay.
past, they did they had always done commercial work, but
Uh-huh.
we hadn't put a focus on it up until like 4 to 5 years ago. And we joined a
Mm.
lot of commercial related associations. So we consider townhomes and like condominium associations and stuff like that. We consider commercial. Because it's not single family residential. And we joined a lot of associations over the last like 3, 4, 5 years to put our faces in front of the right people. Also, I think that if you want to get into commercial, you have to get LinkedIn because all of the key
Mm.
players in the commercial space are on LinkedIn.
Mm.
Mm. Good point.
How do you know when to add a new like product offering or service offering? Like what are the indicators for that?
Um, there are two components. It's the demand for it. So if we're asked about it multiple times, and really if we say yes before we say no. So like if someone asks and we do our research and we say this could be a good opportunity, this, we can make good numbers in this, we would say yes. And then sometimes we've bid on jobs and we're like, how are we going to do that? Or we'll just figure it out, So there's also a lot of power in finding good subcontractors. If you have a reliable subcontractor and you have a nice, split there, then you can create your own margins and bid on jobs, and that'll increase your gross revenue without having to send your guys out, as long as you have the proper insurance coverages. But it's really when opportunities present themselves to us multiple times, we know that it's time to say yes.
Mm. Is there any point where you're even though an opportunity is presenting itself, that like, no, that's just not where we want to invest, our time and our money and our training. We'd rather double down on something this part.
Yeah. Because how do you say no, right? There's a lot of opportunities when you're an entrepreneur. It's like things come your way. You want to say yes to everything.
Yeah. So one of them is air duct cleaning, like the cleaning. I think it's for the dryer or something, dryer vent cleaning. I don't know, something with ducts. Yeah. And people ask like, will you do this? Will you do this? Can you do this? Do you know someone who does it? That's an example of we did do our research, and like for us, it feels like it doesn't fit in with the scope of what we do. Like we feel like we're exterior cleaners. We'll do interior windows and interior chandeliers because of the demand on that. But marginally, we didn't feel like that fits within the scope of what we do. Other companies do it. It's, even Christmas lights. There are several exterior cleaning companies who do Christmas lights in the winter, especially if they're in a colder climate where they're closed in the winter for power washing. And Christmas lights are fantastic. And we've been asked to do that as well multiple times. We've said no over the last few years. Is there a time? I mean, I would personally like to dabble in it, but there are like two components. To me, that's a whole different service. Like it doesn't fit in with the scope of what we're currently doing. It almost feels like a new company. So that's one we've said no to. We like to take the winter to prepare for the upcoming season. We don't necessarily want to stay open 12 months a year. I know that sounds weird, but this works for us. So it's at each owner's discretion, but that's basically how we base our decisions, on research and demand.
I want to ask you about the seasonality of these of your business, right? Like what do you guys do in the wintertime? Like what do you guys do in the off months?
We continue working. So basically everyone is laid off. We keep on one field operations manager and one sales representative, or commercial sales rep. And he's basically planting seeds for the upcoming year. And then the field ops guy is like preparing the trucks, getting things fixed, fixing power washers, fixing the shop, cleaning, whatever. Me and Freddie focus on our systems. So he plans like the marketing plan for the year. I basically revamp everything, the employee manual, look at our insurances, process management, keep up with the technology updates and stuff like that. So we are very busy in the winter, but it's a different kind of busy because we're not dealing with employees or customers. So it's my favorite time to work because I can literally just do processes the entire time. And then we always vacation. We vacation in January. We'll get away for 1 to 2 weeks.
Nice. That's awesome.
I think that's really important with like a lot of, I don't know if anyone who's listening is like a serial entrepreneur. I feel like we're always on the go. You always want to be making money. You always want to say yes to all the opportunities that present themselves. And so it just seems like, okay, if you're a primary business or services in the summer and there's demand for holiday lights, it's like, okay, might as well make money during the winter as well and like say yes to that. But you're saying it is also a good time to sit back, look at what you're doing, put processes in place so that you can be even more successful next summer, and also take the time to rest. I don't know who needs to hear this today, but it is important to rest and rejuvenate so that you can come back fully ready for the summer, because summer is hard. You're working a lot, you're dealing with a lot of people, and there's a very few jobs that actually allow you to take that time and actually rest, rejuvenate, and also set proper processes in place for you to have a better summer.
Exactly. It's important.
Yeah.
It works for us. It doesn't work for everyone. It works for us.
Yeah. Some people might be bored, but sometimes there's freedom in the boredom.
Yeah.
What would you say are your current like challenges in your role?
Okay. Delegating. So it was a huge objective for this year for me to feel more comfortable delegating. So if I were writing like KPIs for everybody, right? This year, I was like, let me have our sales guy who we've promoted to director of sales, let me have him write the KPIs. Like, I don't have to control everything. Let him do it, and then we review it together. So that's very hard. And there are some tedious tasks, and everyone is talking about virtual assistants now. And everyone's like, you just need a VA. You just need a VA. And that's so scary for me to like, you know what I mean? But I'm going to try it. I do think I'm going to try it. But I think it's just understanding that I cannot do everything, nor do I really want to. Like, I have to separate the high value tasks from the low value tasks and feel comfortable delegating not that they're all low value, but just delegating the things that I really don't have to control.
Yeah. Mo, what was it, that thing that you told me when we were talking? It was like delegate, automate, and there was another thing. Eliminate. Yeah. Look at your tasks and see what you can delegate, see what you can automate, and see what you can eliminate. And I think that's so important to prioritization. Yeah. Good job, Mo.
Yeah. I didn't make it up. I was reading, I can't remember the book. I was reading a book and it was talking about that. It was like...
No, I think that's really important.
We have one more question before we wrap. What advice would you have for women in home services or in the home service space?
My advice to women in the home service space is to really own your role and be confident in what you're doing and know that you contribute so much more than you and other people think that you do. I think you should give yourself a title, and I think it should be whatever you want. You want to be CEO, be CEO. I don't think that all women have to default to office manager. I just, I think that there's a powerful impact of having females in this space. I think we teach the guys a few things and vice versa. I just think owning your role is just so important.
What would you say for women who feel like imposter syndrome a little bit? It's like, oh, I can do office manager. Can I be CEO?
I'm feeling that a lot over the last 6 months. Like, why do people want to hear from me? And I'm going to be 40 on Saturday, actually.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. And I was telling Freddie actually that a few days ago, I don't want other people to wait until they're 40 to feel like how valuable they are. So like imposter syndrome is just in your head. Like, you know your stuff, just own it. And I just hope that the women, especially who are working with their husbands, are getting the respect and support from their husbands, because also having that partnership really motivates you to like feel really good about what you're doing and contributing to the space.
This was great. This was really good conversation.
This was so fun. Thank you so much, Christine, for being part of the Built by Me podcast team.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
It was awesome.
Great. I love that.
It was great. Thanks again, Christine. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Built by Me podcast. That concludes our conversation today with Christine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to follow us on social at Built by Me podcast. Until next time, keep building.